We all have heard stories of people calling 911 when they shouldn't be. But have you heard of someone calling 911 and using emergency services 400 times? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to my channel and Killer Concepts, the place where we talk about all things true crime. My name is Peyton. Before we get started, please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any future content. Today we are going to be talking about something a lot different than we typically do, and this video will most likely be fairly short. But hey, at least we're here and we're not waiting another 2 weeks this time for a video. We are talking about a woman named Kesha Kennedy who called 911 nearly 400 times and used emergency services like riding in an ambulance. The reason I want to talk about this today is she was just recently arrested and charged for abusing emergency services, which I think is rightfully so. It makes me mad when I see things like this. Most of us are taught from a young age that these services are only for emergencies and you should only call them in a dire situation. So seeing a 34-year-old woman being arrested for something as juvenile as this is just, it's super upsetting. It's dumb. I just don't get it. When someone is misusing a service such as an ambulance, they could be taking it away from someone who needs it to save their life. So many news outlets have been reporting on this. So we're going to dive into the story and see if there is any legitimate reasons for it, possibly a mental health issue that she may have that could have led to this. So on July 12th, 2024, 34-year-old Kesha Kennedy pled guilty to the charges of disrupting public services and false alarms, which are both felonies. She also pled guilty to 25 misdemeanor counts of misuse of 911 systems. Prosecutors said that the Ohio woman had called 911 hundreds of times over fake emergencies for pretty much the thrill of getting ambulance rides. The Muskingum County Prosecutor's Office also said that her calls placed a massive strain on emergency services in the city of Zanesville. They diverted the critical resources from people who were in actual need, which isn't surprising. These calls dated as far back as 2020. So she's just now being charged for this, and she has been calling 911 all the time since 2020. So according to the New York Post, quote, in one case, the South Zanesville Fire Department was unable to respond to a call involving a person who couldn't breathe and who later died because they were occupied transporting the 34-year-old fabulist, the prosecutor's office said, end quote. NBC4 says that she also calls the fire department to be understaffed during a fire because of one of her calls. Now, I do want to pause for a second and just make it very clear that nobody is saying that the man's death because of the breathing issue is 100% her fault. They're just saying that had the ambulance been able to get to that person sooner, that maybe he would still be alive today. So depending on the circumstances, she could be partially to blame. But I don't want to 100% blame her because we never really know. So Kennedy would call several times a week and even sometimes call several times a day. And she would always complain about various illnesses. Per Unilad, quote, her antics are said to have spanned across 4 different Ohio counties over the years in question, end quote. The following counties are all ones that she has misused emergency services in: Franklin, Licking, Guernsey, and Cuyahoga. Even with her constantly calling 911, complaining of illnesses, she was always given a clean bill of health, and doctors would say she was perfectly fine. But even with the doctors saying that there was nothing to diagnose, she would still continue to call. Unfortunately, doctors were forced to triage her every single visit. They can't reject somebody when they're coming in to the emergency room or when they are using an ambulance. Reports say that all of the trips that Kennedy would take to the the hospital were by ambulance, and this was all funded by taxpayers through Medicare. So not only was she stretching thin the emergency services in the area, but she was also blowing taxpayer dollars. These are not trips that she was paying for. These are trips that were being funded by other people in the community, essentially. So if I was in that area and this woman was doing this, I would be very upset. Because if you're anything like me, you already know, or you already think that we probably pay way too much in taxes in general. You know, all the money that comes out of paychecks. And so myself as a taxpayer, I don't think it would settle very well with me to know that a woman was using it for just a bunch of nonsense ambulance rides. So I'm sure it doesn't sit very well with those people. So before she pled guilty to her crimes, Kennedy would be evaluated by a forensic psychologist. WLWT5 states that Muskingum County Assistant Prosecutor John Little, who handled the case, stated in court that she, quote, demonstrated a factitious disorder, which means she is a liar, end quote. So this woman had no actual mental illnesses that would have caused this kind of behavior, or the doctors did not see any. She is essentially just a compulsive liar who should know enough to know better than to do this kind of thing. So Kennedy had previously been charged before for crimes like this, so I can't believe that she would still continue this behavior. It's almost like she couldn't help herself at this point. Maybe it became like an addiction to her. She liked riding in these ambulances, and you know, sometimes people like this tend to act out in these ways for attention, so maybe there was something going on besides the factitious disorder that the psychologist could look into. Unfortunately, Kennedy to emergency services is probably now basically the lady that cried wolf. Any of the emergency personnel in her area, including EMS, police, and doctors, probably now will not believe her when she comes in, and they may not take the triages as seriously, even if something is really going on, because she has lied about it time and time again. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of visits, so I'm sure every time she comes in, they really aren't looking at her that closely, and they probably all, you know, fight over not being the person who has to take care of her because they're so used to the situation. Just please teach your kids to not have this kind of behavior. Kennedy definitely isn't the only one who does things like this. It's really a shame. Another thing that I see that is super similar to this is that I see a lot of people who are going to emergency rooms for things that aren't really an emergency. That is what places like urgent care are for, if you need some last minute attention. But clogging up these kinds of emergency services only takes the attention away from people who absolutely need them. I mean, you go in an emergency room now and you're waiting probably 10 hours, and somebody in there could be having a serious issue, and then somebody else could be being seen and they really just have a cold. So just really think about it before you go to one of those places. So just keep that in mind next time you call 911 or walk into the emergency room. With that being said, that is all I have for you today. Please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any future content. I know this one was short, but I saw it and I had to talk about it because it blew my mind. I mean, really, this case is so, I don't want to say it's stupid because it's not stupid, because, you know, this woman deserves her charges. It's stupid that she has done this so many times. Honestly, it is one of those cases that this could be its own stupid crime video, because it's just somebody who is doing dumb things for no apparent reason, and I don't get it. And I know it's a shorter video, but you know, I will see you next week with a much longer video. So just keep your eyes out for that. Should you have any case suggestions, please send them to killerconceptsvlog@gmail.com or comment them down below. You can also connect with me on social. I may be changing my Instagram handle soon, but I will make sure to update it in the description box in all of my videos, which I'm not looking forward to because there's so many now. If that does happen, all of my socials are down below in the description box if you would like to connect with me. Just as always, before you go, just remember that the world's most dangerous minds hide in the most unlikely places. Stay safe.